The massive observation screen aboard the Galactic Council's station flashed with urgent warnings. The alien crew stared in disbelief at the readings coming from the small blue planet they had been watching. Senior Observer Reed's 6 eyes widened as he analyzed the data streaming in from Earth. "Impossible," he whispered, his translator converting his musical language into standard galactic speech. "These creatures are sending ships beyond their planet's orbit, but they evolved on a Class 12 death world." The Council had classified Earth as a Class 12 planet centuries ago, marking it as one of the most dangerous and hostile environments known to the galactic community. The fact that intelligent life had not only survived but thrived there went against everything they understood about evolution. 2 months later, Ambassador White stood tall in her black diplomatic uniform as she led the first human delegation onto the Galactic Council's central station. Her steady walk and confident posture caught the attention of the alien diplomats. Behind her, Security Chief Miller and his team maintained a protective formation, their training evident in every measured step. The alien diplomats whispered among themselves. The humans moved with a predator's grace, yet their faces showed peaceful intentions. It was a confusing sight for species that had evolved on safer worlds. "Welcome to the Galactic Council's Station Alpha," announced High Counselor Vale, his crystalline body shimmering under the station's lights. "We are surprised by your species' achievements, given your planet's classification." Ambassador White smiled diplomatically. "Earth has taught us many lessons, High Counselor. Each challenge has made us stronger." The meeting chamber was filled with representatives from 50 different species. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others stood on multiple legs, and a few remained in protective environmental suits. The humans were the only ones who needed no special equipment to breathe the station's standard atmosphere. As White began her presentation about Earth's history and humanity's achievements, warning sirens suddenly blared through the station. The chamber's massive doors slammed shut with a heavy thud. "Station security has detected unauthorized entry in multiple sectors," announced an artificial voice. "Emergency protocols initiated." The alien diplomats erupted in panic. Some species began changing colors rapidly, others emitted distress pheromones, and a few tried to hide under the furniture. Security Chief Miller immediately took action. "Everyone stay calm." His voice cut through the chaos. "Ambassador, we need to secure this room." White nodded, her training kicking in. "High Counselor, your security systems. Are there safe rooms nearby?" Before Vale could answer, an explosion rocked the station. The artificial gravity flickered, sending several alien diplomats floating helplessly into the air. The humans, however, quickly adapted to the changing gravity, using nearby furniture to anchor themselves. "Terrorist attack," Miller reported, checking his tablet. "The Purifiers. Anti-Earth extremists. They've damaged the station's main systems." Through the chamber's viewing windows, they watched as several sleek, black ships docked forcefully with the station. Armed figures in dark armor began cutting through airlocks. "They're here to stop Earth from joining the Galactic Council," White realized, her mind racing through options. "They see us as a threat." The alien diplomats watched in fascination as the humans rapidly organized themselves. Miller's security team quickly gathered weapons from their diplomatic cases, items that appeared decorative but were fully functional. White helped the floating diplomats back to the ground, her Deathworld strength making it look easy. "High Counselor," White addressed Vale, while checking the room's exits, "your people aren't used to crisis situations. Let us handle the defense. We've evolved dealing with threats." Vale's crystalline form vibrated with worry. "Ambassador, these terrorists are armed with advanced weapons. Your species has never." A second explosion cut him off, this one closer. The station's lights flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness. Several alien species cried out in terror, their eyes not adapted to low light conditions. But in the darkness, the humans smiled grimly. On Earth, being able to function in darkness had meant survival. Now, it would mean survival again. The aliens were about to witness firsthand why humans were called Deathworlders, and why underestimating them was a deadly mistake. In the darkness of the conference chamber, the aliens huddled together, their bodies trembling. The station's failing systems created an environment that terrified species used to carefully controlled conditions. But for the humans, it felt strangely familiar. Temperatures dropping. Miller reported calmly, his breath starting to fog in the air. Life support's running on backup power. We've got maybe 3 hours before it gets dangerous for our alien friends. Ambassador White nodded, already removing her diplomatic jacket. Like winter survival training, she said, then turned to the alien diplomats. Everyone, gather in the center of the room. We need to share body heat. High Counselor Vale's crystalline form shivered as the temperature fell. Our species, we are not built for temperature changes this extreme. That's why you have us, White replied, her voice steady and reassuring. She looked at her security team. Strip the room. Anything we can use for insulation. The humans moved with practiced efficiency in the dim emergency lighting. They tore down decorative hangings, pulled padding from chairs, and quickly created a sheltered area in the center of the room. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans transformed their formal diplomatic uniforms into practical survival gear. A loud crack echoed through the station, and the artificial gravity shifted again. Several floating aliens cried out in panic, but the humans were ready. They grabbed the drifting diplomats, using their own bodies as anchors. Remarkable, whispered an alien scientist, his 8 tentacles wrapped tightly around a support beam. They adapt to changing gravity as if they were born to it. Miller smiled grimly. Earth's gravity varies by location. We learned to adjust our balance since childhood. He pulled a small device from his boot. And we always carry backup tools. The device projected a small heat field, creating a warm zone in the center of their makeshift shelter. The aliens crowded closer, amazed by the humans' preparedness. How? Vale began, his crystalline form still shaking. How are you so calm? White helped a floating diplomat back to the shelter before answering. On Earth, weather can change in minutes. Earthquakes, storms, floods. We grew up knowing nature could turn deadly at any moment. This, she gestured at the dark chamber. This is just another Tuesday for us. Suddenly, the station's emergency lights flickered and died completely. Several alien species wailed in terror. Their eyes weren't designed for total darkness. But the humans' eyes, evolved for both day and night hunting, quickly adjusted. Everyone stay quiet, Miller ordered softly. Through the walls, they could hear heavy footsteps approaching. The purifiers are sweeping the station. White moved silently through the darkness, her feet finding secure placement, despite the unstable gravity. She reached the chamber's control panel and began working with tools from her hidden kit. Ambassador, one of the alien diplomats called out nervously. What are you doing? Setting up an advantage, she replied quietly. On Earth, we learned that darkness isn't just something to fear. It's a tool. And right now, it's our friend. The footsteps grew closer. The humans positioned themselves around the alien diplomats, forming a protective circle. The aliens watched in awe as the humans seemed to become different creatures, their diplomatic politeness replaced by focused alertness. They think they've trapped us, Miller said, checking his weapon. They don't understand that humans evolved as ambush predators. We don't fear being trapped. We turn it to our advantage. Through the chamber's viewports, they could see the purifier's lights sweeping through nearby corridors. The terrorists were moving with confidence, believing their technology gave them control of the situation. White finished her work at the control panel and moved back to the group. Let them come, she whispered, and the alien saw something new in her eyes. The look of a predator preparing to strike. They're about to learn why Earth's darkness bred the galaxy's most dangerous survivors. The temperature continued to drop, and the gravity fluctuated wildly, but the humans showed no signs of distress. Instead, they looked more focused, more alert, more alive. The alien diplomats began to understand. They weren't trapped with the terrorists. The terrorists were trapped with them. The first Purifier Patrol never saw the attack coming. They swept into the darkened conference chamber, their helmet lights cutting through the blackness. The terrorists moved with the confidence of hunters who believed their technology made them superior. They were wrong. From the shadows above, Miller dropped silently. Years of training on Earth's varied terrain had taught humans to use every part of their environment. He landed behind the patrol leader, his movements smooth and predatory. Before the other purifiers could react, 2 more members of the security team struck from different angles. The alien diplomats watched in stunned silence as the humans moved with lethal grace. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. The entire patrol was disabled in less than 30 seconds. "Clear," Miller whispered, his voice barely audible. He turned to the shocked diplomats. "This is why we train in all conditions on Earth. You never know when you'll need to fight in darkness, storms, or worse." Ambassador White emerged from the shadows, examining the fallen purifiers. "Their equipment is good," she noted, "but they rely too much on it. They forgot the most important rule of hunting: never underestimate your prey." High Counselor Vale's crystalline form trembled, but not from cold this time. You were letting them hunt us," he realized. "But all along, we were hunting them," White finished with a grim smile. On Earth, most predators learn the hard way that humans are more dangerous when cornered. The security team quickly stripped the purifiers of useful equipment. They moved with practiced efficiency, their movements showing years of military training. The alien diplomats noticed how the humans checked each piece of gear by touch alone, their hands remembering patterns learned in countless drills. "Ambassador," one of the alien diplomats spoke up, their voice shaking, "your species, you speak of peace, but you move like warriors." White helped a floating diplomat adjust their new breathing mask before answering. "On Earth, peace must be strong enough to defend itself. We learned that lesson early in our history." Suddenly, the station's emergency channels crackled with noise. Through bursts of static, they heard other purifier patrols reporting missing teams. The terrorists were starting to realize something was wrong. Miller grinned in the darkness. "They're getting nervous. Good. Fear makes them sloppy." The humans began setting traps using the captured equipment. They turned the station's damaged systems into weapons, creating zones of shifting gravity that would disorient anyone who didn't grow up dealing with Earth's variable conditions. "Watch and learn," White told the alien diplomats as her team worked. "This is how Deathworld predators think. We don't just react to threats, we reshape the environment to our advantage." Through the chamber's viewports, they could see more purifier patrols moving with increasing caution. The terrorists' body language had changed. They no longer moved like hunters. Now, they moved like prey. They expected to find helpless diplomats, Miller explained as he set another trap. Instead, they found humans. Earth taught us that survival means being ready for anything. The alien diplomats huddled together, watching the humans prepare for battle. They saw how the security team moved in perfect coordination, no words needed. Like pack hunters from Earth's ancient past, each human knew their role instinctively. "The purifiers wanted to show the galaxy that humans don't belong here," White said, checking the makeshift defenses. "Instead, they're about to show everyone exactly why Earth's children are the most dangerous survivors in known space." A distant explosion rocked the station. The purifiers were getting desperate, using heavier weapons to search for their missing patrols. But in the darkness of the conference chamber, the humans smiled. Every blast, every shout, every sign of panic told them their plan was working. The hunt was on. And this time, the Deathworlders were the hunters. A deep rumble shook the station, different from the explosions before. Engineer Thompson, part of the human delegation, looked up from the captured purifier datapad he was studying. His eyes narrowed as he felt the vibration through his boots. "That's not good," he muttered, moving quickly to a maintenance panel. "That's the reactor. They've damaged it worse than we thought." Ambassador White joined him at the panel. How bad? Thompson pried open the panel, revealing a maze of alien technology. To the diplomat's surprise, he didn't hesitate at the sight of the unfamiliar systems. Instead, his hands moved confidently across the controls. Really bad, he replied, reading the alien symbols. The cooling system is failing. We got maybe an hour before this whole station goes critical. High Counselor Vale's crystalline form pulsed with panic. But our engineers spent years designing these systems. They're supposed to be fail-safe. Miller secured another entrance before adding, yeah, well, on Earth we learned the hard way. Nothing is truly fail-safe. That's why we plan for failure. Thompson was already pulling tools from his diplomatic bag. The aliens watched in amazement as he extracted devices that looked more suited to a repair shop than a diplomatic mission. White noticed their surprise and smiled. Earth rule number 1, she explained. Always bring tools. You never know when something will break in ways the designers never imagined. The station shuddered again. Through the viewport, they could see emergency lights flashing in distant sections. The purifier's attack had triggered a chain reaction in the station's systems. The reactor uses crystalline matrix technology. One of the alien diplomats said nervously. It's incredibly complex. Even our best engineers need special training to. Thompson cut them off by pointing to a diagram he'd sketched on the floor. Look familiar. It's just like the cooling systems in Earth's old fission plants. Different tech, same principles. Heat needs to move from point A to point B. If the normal path is blocked, we make a new one. The aliens watched in fascination as Thompson began to repurpose captured purifier equipment. His hands moved quickly, combining alien tech with pieces of his own tools. To their surprise, he was humming quietly as he worked. How can you be so calm? Vale asked. The reactor could explode. On Earth, Thompson replied while stripping wires with his teeth. Things try to kill you all the time. Weather, earthquakes, faulty equipment. You learn to think clearly under pressure, or you don't survive. Miller's team brought more salvaged equipment, and Thompson quickly incorporated it into his growing collection of makeshift tools. The aliens were amazed at how the humans instinctively worked together, passing tools and holding pieces without needing to speak. This is impossible, one of the alien engineers whispered. You're combining technologies that were never meant to work together. White helped Thompson lift a heavy panel while responding. Humans specialize in making the impossible work. On Earth, that's often the difference between life and death. The reactor's warning sounds grew louder, but Thompson worked steadily. His improvisations looked crude to the alien's eyes, but each piece had a purpose. He was rebuilding the cooling system using parts never designed for that job. Almost there, he muttered, connecting the last pieces. It's not pretty, but it'll work. On Earth, we say ugly but effective beats beautiful but broken every time. The aliens held their breath as Thompson activated his makeshift system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the reactor's warning sounds began to quiet. The temperature readings started to drop. Impossible, Vale whispered again, but this time with awe rather than doubt. You solved a problem our best engineers said couldn't be fixed without specialized equipment. Thompson wiped grease from his hands, grinning. That's because your engineers never had to fix a tractor in the middle of a tornado. Earth taught us that waiting for the right tool means death, so we learned to make do with whatever we have. The reactor stabilized, its angry red warnings fading to cautious yellow. The humans had turned certain death into merely a serious problem, and they'd done it with scrapped parts and improvised tools. This was the true strength of Deathworlders, the ability to stare into the face of impossible odds and say, "Watch me fix this." With the reactor stabilized, Miller gathered the alien diplomats in a tight circle. The humans had cleared a large area in the conference chamber, pushing debris to create a makeshift training ground. "Time to teach you how to fight back," Miller announced, holding up captured weapons from the purifiers. On Earth, we learned that everyone in the group needs to be able to defend themselves. The aliens looked at the weapons with obvious fear. A diplomat with 4 arms raised all of them in protest. But we're diplomats. We've never fought in our lives. White stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. On Earth, even peaceful creatures know how to defend themselves. Every rabbit knows how to kick. Every deer knows how to run. Now it's your turn to learn. Miller demonstrated basic defensive moves, showing how different alien body types could use their natural advantages. The crystalline diplomats learned they could reflect energy weapons. The floating species discovered they could use the failing gravity to move quickly and unpredictably. Remember, Miller explained as he adjusted an alien's grip on a weapon, you're not learning to be warriors. You're learning to survive. That's what Earth taught us. Survival isn't just about being strong. It's about being smart. Through the chamber's viewports, they could see purifier patrols becoming more aggressive. The terrorists were frustrated by their missing teams and the failing reactor plan. They were making mistakes. That's our opportunity, White said, pointing out the purifiers' increasingly erratic movements. They're angry, which means they're getting sloppy. On Earth, predators who let anger control them don't survive long. The alien diplomats were surprised at how quickly they learned. The humans broke down complex fighting moves into simple, natural movements. They taught the aliens to use their unique bodies in ways they'd never considered. Amazing, High Counselor Vale commented as he successfully deflected a practice shot with his crystalline body. We always saw our differences as weaknesses to overcome. You see them as strengths to use. Thompson, monitoring the station's systems, called out, "Purifiers are gathering near Section 7. Looks like they're planning something big." Miller smiled grimly. "Good, because so are we." He turned to the now armed alien diplomats. "Time for your first lesson in human battle tactics. We call this one the trap." The humans quickly organized the aliens into groups, positioning them to take advantage of their natural abilities. Crystalline beings were placed where they could reflect weapons fire. Flying species took high positions. Those with multiple limbs were taught to handle several tasks at once. "This is how Earth's pack hunters work," White explained as she coordinated the groups. "Each member has a role. Each role is vital. Together, we're stronger than any single predator." The aliens watched in amazement as the humans laid out their plan. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about using the environment, about timing, about turning the station's damaged systems into weapons. "But what if we make mistakes?" one of the nervous diplomats asked. "Everyone makes mistakes," Miller replied while checking the final positions. "On Earth, we learned it's not about being perfect. It's about adapting when things go wrong. That's why we always have backup plans." Through the station's damaged communications, they could hear the purifiers coordinating their own attack. The terrorists still thought they were hunting frightened diplomats. They had no idea they were walking into a trap set by humans who had turned their victims into allies. "Remember," White said as everyone took their positions, "you're not just fighting for yourselves. You're fighting for everyone who said peaceful species can't defend themselves. Show them what you learned from Earth's children." The aliens felt a new confidence as they prepared for battle. The humans had taught them more than just fighting. They had taught them how to overcome fear, how to work together, how to turn weakness into strength. The purifiers were about to learn that humans didn't just survive on a death world. They taught others to survive too. The purifiers never saw the first strike coming. As their main force moved through Section 7, the station's damaged speakers suddenly crackled to life. The sound that emerged wasn't speech. It was the low, rumbling growl of an Earth predator, amplified and echoing through the corridors. "Psychological warfare," White explained to the watching alien diplomats. "On Earth, every predator knows fear is a weapon." The terrorists hesitated, their formation breaking slightly. That moment of uncertainty was all the humans needed. Thompson triggered his jerry-rigged controls, and entire sections of the corridor lost gravity. The purifiers, focused on their helmet displays, were caught completely off guard. Now, Miller's voice was barely a whisper, but the newly trained alien diplomats moved as one. Crystalline beings emerged from hiding spots, their bodies reflecting weapon fire back at the confused terrorists. Flying species swooped through the zero-gravity zones, using their natural mobility to create chaos. The purifiers found themselves under attack from all directions. "Watch how they move," White pointed out to Vale. "See how they bunch together. Prey behavior. They're forgetting their training." The humans had positioned themselves at key points throughout the battlefield. They didn't charge in directly. Instead, they picked their targets carefully, striking and disappearing like the ambush predators their ancestors had been. "Your species," Vale observed with growing understanding. "You're not just fighting. You're hunting them." Miller nodded as he lined up another shot. Earth's top predators don't just use teeth and claws. They use strategy. They break the prey's confidence, make them doubt themselves. The station's lights flickered in patterns Thompson had programmed, creating disorienting shadows. Strange sounds played through the speakers, mixing Earth animal calls with the station's own groaning metal. The purifiers found themselves in an environment designed to trigger primal fears. "See how they're rattled." White gestured to the increasingly panicked terrorists. They came expecting a simple hostage situation. Instead, they're facing their worst nightmare: prey that fights back. The alien diplomats, now confident in their roles, executed the human battle plan perfectly. Each species used their natural abilities in ways the purifiers never expected. A floating diplomat tangled several terrorists in captured cables. A multi-limbed species operated multiple weapons simultaneously. "This is impossible," one of the purifier leaders shouted, his voice carrying through their comm system. "They're just diplomats. How are they fighting like warriors?" "That's the thing about humans," Thompson replied over the captured channel, his voice deliberately calm. "We don't just adapt. We teach others to adapt too. Welcome to Earth tactics." The purifiers tried to regroup, but the humans had studied their movements. Every escape route led to another trap. Every defensive position left them exposed. The terrorists began to realize they weren't fighting a random resistance. They were being systematically taken apart by experienced predators. "Your people," a six-armed diplomat said to White, while reloading a captured weapon. "You made this look so easy. Like you planned for everything." White smiled grimly. "On Earth, the predators that survive aren't the strongest. They're the ones who plan ahead, who think about how their prey will react, who use every advantage." The purifier's formation continued to crumble. Some tried to surrender, while others fired wildly at shadows. The humans had turned the entire section of the station into a hunting ground, and the terrorists were learning what it meant to be prey. "Send the signal," Miller ordered, watching the purifiers break completely. "Let the Council see what happens when you corner Earth's children." Through the station's security cameras, the Galactic Council watched in amazement. They saw not just the physical combat, but the strategy behind it. They witnessed humans using their Deathworld experience to turn a diplomatic crisis into a masterclass in survival. The purifiers had wanted to show the galaxy that humans didn't belong. Instead, they proved exactly why humanity had survived Earth, and why underestimating Deathworlders was a fatal mistake. As the rescue ships docked with Station Alpha, they found a very different scene than they expected. Instead of devastation and victims, they found captured terrorists and organized defenses. The sight of alien diplomats standing confidently with weapons, directed by human leaders, made the rescue teams stop in surprise. "Welcome to the party," Miller called out to the shocked rescue teams. "Sorry about the mess. We had to teach some lessons about respecting Deathworlders." The station's main hall had been transformed into a temporary command center. Ambassador White stood with High Counselor Vale, reviewing security footage of the battle. Around them, human security officers and alien diplomats worked together, processing captured purifiers. "Remarkable," the rescue team's commander said, watching a replay of crystalline diplomats reflecting weapon fire while floating species conducted air attacks. We receive reports of a terrorist takeover. Instead, we find a coordinated defense force. White smiled as she helped Vale organize the video evidence. Amazing what can happen when you combine human experience with alien abilities. Turns out diplomats make pretty good warriors when properly motivated. The Galactic Council's emergency session was already underway, reviewing the security feeds from the station. They watched in stunned silence as the footage showed humans not just surviving the attack, but teaching others to fight back. "Look at this part," one council member said, replaying the scene where Thompson fixed the reactor. They repaired advanced alien technology with scrapped parts and basic tools. How is this possible? Because that's what Earth taught us, Thompson explained, still tinkering with the station's systems. When failure means death, you learn to make anything work with whatever you have. The medical teams were equally surprised. They had prepared for mass casualties, but found instead that the humans had organized triage centers, using their basic first aid knowledge to help injured aliens survive. "Your species," one of the medical officers said to White. "You're not just survivors, you're teachers. Leaders." Vale's crystalline form glowed with pride as he addressed the council. "My fellow members, I move to officially recognize Earth, not just as a member world, but as a protected resource of galactic importance. Their knowledge, their adaptability. These are treasures we must preserve." The captured purifiers, now under guard, watched with growing dismay as their actions achieved the opposite of what they intended. Instead of proving humans didn't belong, they had demonstrated exactly why humanity was essential to the galactic community. "You don't understand," one of the terrorist leaders protested as he was led away. "They're dangerous. They're predators." "Yes," White replied calmly, "we are. We're predators who choose to protect rather than hunt. We're survivors who teach others to survive. That's what makes us different." News of the incident spread quickly through the galaxy. Space stations began requesting human security advisors. Alien ships added Earth-style emergency protocols. The term Deathworlder shifted from an insult to a mark of respect. "I never thought I'd say this," Vale admitted as the cleanup crews worked, "but perhaps we need more Deathworlders in the galaxy. Not as warriors, but as teachers, as protectors." Miller watched his alien students confidently handling the aftermath of battle. "That's the thing about Earth," he said. "It didn't just teach us to fight. It taught us to adapt, to improvise, to work together. Most importantly, it taught us to help others do the same." As the last purifier ship was secured, White gathered the alien diplomats for a final meeting. Each of them stood taller now, more confident. They had faced death and survived, thanks to human guidance. "Remember what you learned here," she told them. "Not just the fighting techniques, but the mindset. A Deathworlder's greatest strength isn't their ability to survive. It's their ability to help others survive too." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans weren't just another species that had survived a harsh world. They were living proof that the deadliest predators could become the strongest protectors.
What if you found a ship drifting in deep space from a planet that should be impossible to survive? Would you investigate or run for your life? Don't skip this, because what they found inside might rewrite everything we know about life in the galaxy. Let us know in the comments. Would you approach a ghost ship from a deadly planet? Commander Laceria leaned back in her command cradle, the soft teal of her skin bathed in the faint illumination of the control deck. The Void Whisperer had been gliding through the cosmic emptiness for nearly 21 cycles, mapping uncharted systems for the Celestial Registry. Tension had started to bubble beneath the surface. Long-range exploration always tested the nerves. Silence shattered when her detection officer, Marnak, suddenly tensed, his brow ridged in disbelief as he stared into his console. "Commander," he said, voice unsteady, "I've got something bizarre." Laceria swiveled toward him. "Define bizarre." "There's a vessel, unknown configuration. Drifting. No propulsion, no trajectory. Just there." The deck quieted. Unmarked ships this deep into the void rarely meant anything good. "Distance?" she asked. 2 million clicks out. Compact frame, maybe 1/10 our volume. Lysaria rose and strode over. The monitor showed a crude silhouette, jagged, asymmetrical, assembled like it had been cobbled together from scrap. Life signs. Marnak's fingers flew across his panel, face draining. Yes, living entities aboard, but that's not what's alarming. Well, he exhaled slowly. I tracked its origin vector. It came from a system labeled as Sol 3 from a planet known as Terra. Lysaria blinked. Terra meant nothing until a file from her early training surfaced in memory. Isn't that a Tier 15 environment? Affirmative. Tier 15 hazard zone. Classified uninhabitable. Full biological rejection. No known species can survive there. A chill crept up Lysaria's spine. Hazard Tier 15, death planets. Worlds of relentless storms, monstrous predators, toxic clouds, and tectonic upheaval. Even automated probes barely lasted hours. Are you absolutely sure? I ran diagnostics thrice. That ship's trail leads directly from Terra, and the biometrics inside are active. First Mate Drennis stepped forward, drawn by the exchange. Commander, he said, voice low, whatever endured a Tier 15 crucible. We're not prepared to deal with it. Lysaria nodded. Caution was wise. But she couldn't ignore the gravity of this encounter. Across all her explorations, nothing like this had ever surfaced. Advance to intercept, she commanded. Shields up. Armament on standby. The Void Whisperer veered toward the drifting enigma. As the gap closed, the image became sharper. The object was archaic, by galactic metrics, prehistoric. The engines were primitive fusion models, centuries behind mainstream tech. The hull was forged from raw alloys abandoned eons ago. It's like a relic from the Proto-Era, Marnak whispered. From the comms pit, Specialist Trenna called out. Ma'am, I'm picking up emissions. Crude signal, but it's trying to hail us. Can you decrypt it? Working on it now, Trenna said, her hands flying across the interface. It looks like numerical transmissions, basic sequences, like an opening handshake. Lysaria narrowed her eyes. Interspecies greetings through mathematics weren't unusual. The logic of numbers was universal. But for a species from a Tier 15 planetary, Hell's Cape, to understand diplomatic signaling, that chilled her. Send back a reciprocal pattern, she instructed. Let them know we've heard them. Trenna crafted a reply and pulsed it back through the void, a stripped-down sequence to announce their awareness. The reply came swiftly. Commander, Trenna whispered, stunned, they're replying in core galactic standard. Simple syntax, but decipherable. What's the message? Lysaria asked. Trenna adjusted her headset, then blinked in disbelief. It says, Greetings. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Terran ship New Horizon. We've been hoping to meet others out here. Silence wrapped the control deck like a vacuum seal. Meet others, Drennis echoed. They talk like this is some neighborhood mixer. From the science pod, Dr. Sunera finally spoke. She'd been analyzing the biosignatures since first contact. Commander, she said gravely, I've reviewed the life form data. It's unsettling. In what way? Their skeletal mass is triple the density of any registered sentient. Muscular readings suggest intense adaptation to constant environmental trauma. Their neurosignals complex, volatile, almost predatory. Lysaria's unease deepened. Are they hostile? There's no clear aggression. But their physiology? It's tuned for violent survival. Whatever spawned them forged warriors by necessity. The comms unit flared again. Morrison's voice returned, clearer now. Is anyone receiving this? We'd love to have a chat. You're the first friendly signal we've caught in months. Lysaria scanned her officers. The crew's expressions were a battlefield, half gripped by fear, half drawn in by the mystery. These Terrans spoke like explorers, but they hailed from a graveyard world. Trenna's voice broke the tension. They're requesting permission to board. Shock jolted through the room. Receiving alien guests was risky under any circumstance. But inviting aboard survivors from a Tier 15 crucible? That bordered on madness. Yet Morrison's tone, it hadn't wavered. Warm, human, Some part of Lysaria wanted to believe him. "Inform them we'll need to make preparations," she said slowly. "But yes, we'll allow contact." Trenna relayed the message. As the words were sent, Lysaria exhaled, already questioning herself. In a matter of hours, they would come face to face with something unthinkable. Creatures shaped by extinction itself, born of chaos and disaster. They hadn't just endured the impossible. They'd left it behind and come looking for someone to talk to. The thing gnawing at Lysaria's thoughts was deceptively simple. What kind of beings could emerge from a living nightmare and still sound excited to make new friends? 3 hours later, Commander Lysaria stood inside Docking Bay 7, overseeing final preparations. Her team had installed reinforced barriers and automated defense turrets at key entry points. Dr. Sonera clutched her bioanalyzer tightly, while Marnak scanned for even the slightest anomaly. "You're still certain about this, Commander?" Drennis asked for the third time in an hour. "We've got no real intel on these creatures." Lysaria kept her gaze on the bay doors. Scanners showed just 3 entities arriving. If this were an ambush, they'd send an army. Sonera glanced up from her analysis. "Commander, I've cross-examined their anatomy. These Terrans, they're not just survivors. They're weapons, pure and terrifying." "How so?" Drennis asked. "Their reflexes exceed our security system's detection speed. Their tissue density suggests high-impact resistance, yet no sign of aggression. From the comms array," Trenna added, "every signal they've sent has been almost annoyingly polite." "That's what makes them dangerous," Drennis muttered. "Smart predators don't growl before they pounce." The outer hatch released with a low hiss. A compact vessel floated in, primitive like its parent craft, but its approach was flawless. Whoever piloted it had precision in their bones. It settled gently onto the deck. Minutes passed. Stillness. Then the hatch opened. The first to emerge was a towering male, broad frame, short dark hair, and eyes sharp with awareness yet gentle in their gaze. Even under the artificial gravity and altered atmosphere, he moved effortlessly, like he belonged. "That has to be their leader," Trenna whispered. A second figure followed, a woman with neatly bound blonde hair. She held a device, likely for translation, and wore a warm expression that scanned every corner of the bay. The last to exit was a man with deep-toned skin and focused eyes. He walked like he'd fought wars, but smiled like he hoped he never had to again. The leader's gaze swept the chamber before locking onto Lysaria and her assembled officers. He smiled wide and unguarded. "Greetings," he said, lifting one hand in a curious but non-threatening gesture. "I'm Commander Jake Morrison. Sincerely appreciate you allowing us aboard." His tone carried neither fear nor arrogance, only sincerity. Despite herself, Lysaria felt the tension in her shoulders soften just a touch. "I am Commander Lysaria," she replied, voice level but not cold. "Welcome aboard the Void Whisperer." Morrison gestured to the woman beside him. "This is Lieutenant Amy Collins, our communication specialist. And this," he added, nodding toward the third human, "is Sergeant Peter Williams, in charge of our shipboard security." Williams stepped forward, his movements precise but relaxed, his eyes constantly sweeping the area. He gave a courteous nod. "Truly appreciate the hospitality. We're aware this might feel unusual for your crew." Dr. Sonera stepped in, lifting her bioscanner to refine her scans. Lieutenant Collins noticed and tilted her head. "Is that a diagnostic reader?" she asked, genuinely intrigued. "That's impressive. Ours are far more rudimentary." "You don't mind being analyzed?" Sonera asked, surprised. "Of course not," Morrison replied easily. "We'd want the same in your position. Safety checks are just common courtesy where we come from." Sonera activated the scanner while the 3 humans remained motionless and calm. The data sent a jolt through her systems. She felt her dermal membrane chill. Their skeletal makeup had the density of alloys. Their muscular structure resembled reinforced fiber cabling, and their nervous responses blisteringly fast. Yet they just smiled and waited. Lysaria chose her words cautiously. "Your planet, our archives classify it as unlivable." Morrison chuckled. Earth isn't easy. That's fair. But it's home. You adapt. Adapt. Drennis echoed skeptically. Your environmental index shows relentless disasters, constant turbulence, lethal organisms. Oh, the storms. Collins interrupted, cheerful. Yeah, those happen. I'm from a place called Florida. Hurricanes every year. You just prep, stay inside, and clean up after. The alien crew exchanged nervous glances. Such cyclones would devastate entire continents on their worlds. Yet this woman spoke as if discussing the weather forecast. What about the predators? Marnak asked. Williams shrugged. Most avoid you if you avoid them. The few that don't? Well, we invented tools for a reason. Tools. Sunnera prompted, voice tight. Primarily defensive gear, Williams said plainly. Sometimes for hunting game, rarely for dealing with threats. Several officers subtly stepped back at the mention of weapons. Williams caught their reaction. We left them all on our ship. We're not here to start trouble, just conversation. Morrison glanced around at the tension hanging in the room. I think we might be coming off a little strong. Let me reframe things. He motioned toward a viewing panel where a faint sun glowed in the distance. Our world taught us to endure, sure. But more than that, it taught us to support one another. When disasters strike, communities rally. When someone falls, others lift them. He paused before adding, survival isn't just strength. It's unity. That's how we made it. But your species still fights, yes? Yatros asked pointedly. Morrison nodded, unoffended. We've had conflicts, often over land or resources. But we've come a long way in solving problems with words instead of force. Most of us, anyway. As he spoke, Collins continued surveying the docking bay, wide-eyed with wonder. Your systems are phenomenal, she said. These barriers alone are more advanced than anything we've developed. Autonomous grav field modulation, flawless linguistic syncing. Collins was still wide-eyed, turning slowly in place. We don't have anything like this. How did you manage interstellar transit? Marnak leaned forward, cautious. Then how did you even leave your atmosphere? Caution. And lots of redundancy, Williams said with a grin. When your systems break every other Tuesday, you learn to double back everything. Dr. Sunnera finally interjected, her tone analytical. My readings suggest you've been traveling through deep space for half a year. In that outdated vessel. 6 months? That's not too rough, Morrison replied casual. We've done longer rotations. Rotations. Lysaria echoed. Deployment cycles, Williams explained. Long-term missions. The space is mild compared to some of the war zones we've been stationed in. The aliens went silent. To them, space was the ultimate crucible. That humans considered it mild was unsettling. Collins noticed the discomfort and chuckled. I think we're creeping them out. Didn't mean to really, Morrison added quickly. We're just really excited. First contact has been a dream for centuries. Centuries. Norin asked, raising a scaled brow. We've only had the tools to search the stars for a few decades, Collins clarified. But we've imagined this moment for generations. Morrison scanned the group again, his voice warm. I get it, we're probably a bit much. But all we're looking for is knowledge, perspective, and maybe some new friends. We're explorers, not invaders. Zethra hesitated. Her instincts screamed caution, but something in their sincerity was disarming. The warmth wasn't rehearsed. It felt earned. Perhaps, she said slowly, we could discuss this further in a more suitable environment. Would you be interested in a guided walkthrough of the Star Weaver? Morrison's face lit up. We'd love that. Thank you. As they started toward the chamber doors, Williams cast one last glance at the defensive barricades. You folks don't mess around, huh? We prefer preparedness, Yatros said with a tight nod. Smart, Williams replied with genuine approval. Precaution keeps you breathing. The tour lasted over 3 hours. Morrison, Collins, and Williams questioned everything, from the fusion drives to the botanical labs. Their mental agility stunned the crew. They absorbed information like sponges and responded with insights that were both primitive and brilliant. Meanwhile, Dr. Sonera had prepared her infirmary for a comprehensive physiological evaluation. With Morrison's blessing, she initiated every scan, test, and cellular analysis she could devise. The results defied belief. "Captain," she called Zethra softly, "you should see this." Zethra stepped beside the medical array, her eyes scanning the numbers, then locking in disbelief. This must be an error." "I've recalibrated 5 times, Sonera whispered. "This is the data." Morrison's skeletal readings showed compressive tolerance 4 times above normal. His muscle tissue behaved more like adaptive fiber armor than biology, and his immune profile, Sonera hesitated, jaw tightening. "He possesses resistance markers for plagues we've only encountered in containment vaults, strains that wiped out entire species, and he carries natural defenses." "That's possible?" Zethra whispered, eyes still glued to the scanner. Sonera gave a slow, pale nod. "If these readings are real, and I've run them 6 times, then Earth is even more unforgiving than we imagined. His physiology, it's like something built to endure a war zone made of plagues, predators, and planetary disasters." In the chamber of exchange, the humans were now explaining their species' past. The mood? 1 part fascination, 2 parts growing existential dread. "During the glacial era," Collins said brightly, "huge parts of our planet were entombed in ice. Entire continents buried beneath frozen sheets, some over a mile deep." Kendra blinked, voice cracking. "That would collapse an atmosphere on most planets. It was cold," Collins admitted. "But we made fire, huddled together for warmth, built shelters, figured out how to hunt animals in the snow." "Don't forget the asteroid," Williams added. "Wiped out nearly all life about 65 million years ago." "An asteroid?" Yatros said slowly. "Big enough to kill off the dominant species," Jake replied. "They were called dinosaurs. Some of them were bigger than your gunships." The room went silent again. The concept of a rock from the sky erasing planetary rulers, and yet life somehow bouncing back, was too much to grasp. "But Earth didn't quit," Morrison continued, his voice steady. "It adapted. Life always pushes forward." Norrell finally spoke, her tone strained. "What other events has your planet endured?" Collins frowned in thought. "Let's see global extinctions, volcanic winters, flipped magnetic fields, rising oceans, collapsing forests, expanding deserts, just a few existential shakeups." Jake nodded. "And through it all, new life forms kept rising. Earth tested billions of variations. Humans are just the latest experiment in survival." At that moment, Dr. Sonera entered, still visibly shaken from her earlier findings. "Captain," she said, addressing Zethra but locking eyes with Morrison, "may I ask something medical?" Jake smiled. "Of course. Have you ever been gravely wounded?" Jake raised an eyebrow, then casually pulled back his sleeve. A trail of scars ran down his arm like a tapestry of survival. "Broke this twice as a kid. Got envenomated by a pit viper once. Had surgery for organ inflammation, standard stuff." Sonera leaned closer, scanning the skin. Each mark, each tale of injury, would have spelled certain death for most known species. "You survived venom exposure?" she asked, nearly whispering. Jake shrugged. "Yeah, rattlesnake. Nasty. But if you get anti-venom quickly, it's not too bad." "You manufacture antidotes for predatory toxins?" "Sure," he replied. "We try to be ready for anything." Williams chuckled. "Wait till you hear how Amy almost got swallowed by the ocean." Several aliens straightened at once. "The ocean did what?" "It's called a riptide," Amy said cheerfully. "Water drags you from shore faster than you can swim. I got pulled out about a kilometer before the Coast Patrol found me." "You survived hostile ocean currents?" Amy grinned. "Barely. Lesson learned. Don't ignore surf warnings." Zethra was quiet, watching them all. They spoke of disasters, injuries, brushes with death, as if they were just life lessons. They were survivors, but not cold, hardened machines. They laughed, smiled, shared, creatures of chaos, with kindness in their eyes. "Dragged into the sea?" Sarithra asked, barely audible. Amy nodded, brushing back a loose strand of hair. "It was terrifying, yeah, but I knew what to do. swim sideways to escape the current, then head back in once I was clear. Basic water safety where I'm from. The aliens shared glances that bordered on panic. What these creatures casually referred to as basic would be considered cataclysmic survival on any world they'd ever known. Jake saw the unease building and chuckled softly. I think we're painting the wrong picture of Earth. It's really not as lethal as we're making it sound. Not lethal. Yaren choked out. Jake shrugged. It has its moments. But we've adapted. We read the skies before the storms hit. We build quake-resistant buildings. We keep track of dangerous wildlife. Preparation saves lives. Kindra leaned in, voice hushed. And war? Your species has records of interspecies violence on its own planet. The room grew quiet. Pete's demeanor changed. The grin faded. Yes, he said after a pause. Too many wars. But we've learned. What were they like? Asked Dr. Elnary, almost regretting the question before it was fully spoken. Jake's expression turned grim. Devastating. We created weapons that could level entire cities in seconds. Some wars dragged on for years. Millions died. No one spoke. Even the ship's hum seemed muted. The idea of a species enduring planetary hell and then turning its own survival instincts inward, it was almost incomprehensible. That's why we're here, Amy said, voice soft but steady. We've made mistakes, yes, but we've changed. Now we search for knowledge instead of enemies. You turned your weapons into starships? Norva asked. Pete nodded. More or less. The same rockets that once carried warheads? We used those to leave our planet. Jake leaned forward, voice low and earnest. Look, I get that we sound terrifying, but the same challenges that hardened us also taught us to treasure life. When you live on a world that's always trying to kill you, you realize something. Your neighbor isn't competition. They're your lifeline. Cooperation, Amy added, is the only real strength we have. When disaster hits, people help. Across borders, languages, politics, none of that matters. We share what we learn. Survival isn't about brute force. It's about community. Dr. Sunera, pale but focused, finally spoke. Jake, what do you hope to achieve out here among the stars? Jake didn't hesitate. We want to explore, learn, and meet species like yours. Conquest isn't the goal. Sarithra asked cautious. Jake shook his head. Earth's getting full. We're searching for empty worlds where humans could settle. Preferably the tough ones, since that's what we're used to. You're looking for hostile planets? Yaren asked, stunned. The kind that would kill most species. Norva echoed. Jake smiled. Those are the ones that feel most like home. Silence followed. Not out of fear, but awe. These beings were not just survivors of chaos. They were shaped by it. And somehow, despite everything, they had chosen peace. The kind of environment we understand best, Yarrick concluded with a calm grin. The alien delegation blinked in disbelief. The concept of choosing to live somewhere hostile was so alien to them, it felt like fiction. What would qualify as suitable? Yaren asked cautiously. Yarrick tapped his chin, thinking. Well, it would need water and breathable air, obviously. Some tectonic movement to keep the environment dynamic. A little weather drama now and then. Maybe a few apex predators to keep us sharp. Rail gave a grin. So basically, a world that tries to kill us, but not all the time. The silence from the Starwaver's crew could have sucked the air from the room. These beings had survived extinction-level chaos, and they wanted more. Not out of masochism, but because it felt like home. Their upbeat tone only made it more terrifying. 2 cycles later, alarms echoed through galactic comms. Captain Sarithra sat alone in her command chamber, reviewing frantic updates flooding from the Central Council. News of the human contact had gone supernova, faster than FTL. Every member species had heard the tale of the Earthborn. A communication window opened. Admiral Corvell's face appeared, deeply lined and heavy with dread. I've read your full report, Captain. Are you absolutely sure these details are accurate? They are, Sarithra said, voice steady. Every scan, every conversation, verified. These people, they're real. The council is in chaos, Corvell said. Half demand an immediate quarantine. The rest want dissection-level analysis. There's even chatter about labeling them a Class Alpha existential threat. Sarithra's chest tightened. Admiral, they've been peaceful, cooperative, curious. Corvell's eyes narrowed. Exactly. A species that can endure a Tier 15 death world and still present as diplomatic? That's not peace, Captain. That's apex-level camouflage. The channel blinked out. Alone again, Sarithra moved to the observation dome. Below the glowing fields of stars stood Yarrick and Dr. Valmyra, deep in conversation. You see, Yarrick was saying, pointing to a stellar bloom on the far horizon. Stars are chaos and beauty at the same time. Exploding, collapsing, reforming. An eternal cycle of destruction making room for creation. Valmyra nodded, mesmerized by both the vision and the man beside her. Her fear had ebbed in the past 2 days. Fascination was taking its place. Yarrick, she asked gently, can I ask something personal? He turned with that calm smile. Anything. When you were younger, did you realize how lethal your homeworld was? He laughed softly. Not really. When you're born into it, the danger just blends into the background. We knew there were risks, of course. But where isn't there risk? It's just life. But didn't it make you all violent? Or afraid? Sometimes, Yarrick admitted thoughtfully. But mostly it made us cautious and collaborative. When the ground might shatter beneath you, or a sky could turn violent in minutes, you learn fast. Survival is a team sport. You plan together and you rebuild together, he added, gazing at the stars. That's how we made it. Dr. Vaelna opened her mouth to press further when Aviarin stepped onto the observation deck, a compact device in her hands and excitement in her eyes. Yarrick, she called. I think I cracked their long-range comms. That was fast, Yarrick said with a grin. Their transmission grid is mind-blowing. Instant comms across entire quadrants. That's wild, Yarrick replied. Our signals crawl. Years to cross a single system. Avia turned toward Dr. Vaelna. Would it be possible to patch a message through to Earth? Just something simple. Tell them we're safe and we've made contact. Dr. Vaelna hesitated. The request sounded harmless, but the diplomatic protocols were uncharted. I'll need to run that by Captain Sarithra, she replied carefully. Elsewhere aboard the Starwaver, Rail Tarkos was surrounded by a half-dozen alien crew in the gymnasium. Curiosity had overtaken caution, and they'd asked about human strength. Rail obliged. Kynal's mouth dropped open as Rail hoisted dense alloy weights above his shoulders with ease. The plates would have flattened most species on board. How are you doing that? Kynal gasped. Just routine conditioning, Rail said, setting the load down like it weighed nothing. Where I'm from, regular training's just part of being prepared. If a storm drops a tree on someone or a landslide blocks a road, we've got to be able to respond. This level of strength is typical, Yaren asked, blinking. More or less, Rail said. I've got some extra edge from my old military days, sure, but it's not unusual. Noraith had been silent until now. What did your military role involve? Rail's face changed slightly. A flicker of old memories crossed his features. Mostly stabilization missions, escorting aid caravans, protecting civilians in volatile zones. Were you ever in an active engagement? She asked, hesitantly. Rail paused. Yes, he said quietly. A few times. It's not something I recount for fun. Were you afraid? Yaren asked. Of course, Rail said. Fear's a survival tool. It sharpens you. But the trick is mastering it, not letting it paralyze you. The crew around him exchanged anxious glances. The idea that this composed, amiable human had seen combat and walked away whole was deeply disquieting. Meanwhile, in the ship's engineering wing, Avia Run was poring over fusion network schematics with Systems Director Telvan. Your power core design is staggeringly efficient, Avia said, eyes gleaming. Our reactors back home are centuries behind this. These are average units, Telvan replied, clearly puzzled. You find this impressive? Impressive? It's revolutionary, Avia replied. But if I may, You've got some single-point failure risks in the layout. Single point what? She pointed at a junction node. If this conduit fails, you lose power to half your ship. Where I come from, we triple back up every life-sustaining system. Telvin looked baffled. Why would you over-engineer like that? Avia glanced at him seriously. Because things fail, especially in harsh environments. And if your oxygen grid or NAV system decides to die midstorm, you better have a backup ready, or you don't make it. If a system fails during a cyclone, there's no reset button, Avia said gravely. Telvin traced her finger along the schematic, expression darkening. She wasn't exaggerating. The Starwaver had weak points, ones that could doom them in a crisis. You can prove this, he asked quietly. I'd love to, Avia replied, her grin returning. Show me a workstation. That evening, Captain Sarithra summoned her command team. The humans had been invited to a shared meal, but Sarithra needed clarity from her own officers first. I've just received directives from the Galactic Council, she began. They want us to escort the Vigilant Dawn to Terminus Central for a formal review. Terminus. Yairen said sharply. A core nexus? Is that prudent? The Council insists, Sarithra said. They want an official determination on where these humans belong in the interstellar structure. Dr. Vaelna folded her arms. Captain, I've been studying them continuously. They're not hostile. They're inquisitive, even compassionate. But yes, extremely dangerous. Kynal nodded grimly. Their biology alone makes them formidable. Any group of them could be an elite strike team without even trying. Formidable doesn't equal violent, Noraith countered. They've shown zero aggression. They've been open, honest, even helpful. That's what's bothering some members of the Council, Sarithra said. They fear a species that's not only powerful, but clever enough to mask its intent. The evening dinner was marked by quiet tension. The humans, though polite and engaging, could sense the shift in mood. Something's up, Yarrick said, glancing between the crew. Sarithra exhaled and decided to be direct. Yarrick, the Galactic Council has asked us to bring your vessel to Terminus Central. They want a comprehensive evaluation. Evaluation? Yarrick raised an eyebrow. Sounds thorough. It's a nexus where your species' potential place in galactic affairs will be determined. Honestly, Yarrick said, placing his fork down, we'd be honored. The chance to meet more civilizations? That's why we're out here. You're not worried? Yairen asked warily. Rail chuckled. We've had worse welcomes. At least you're giving us a seat at the table before drawing weapons. Avia added with a warm smile. We're here to contribute. If there are protocols to follow, we'll follow them. We just want to be decent neighbors. Their calm acceptance of a situation that might spell danger left the alien crew even more unsettled. Were these humans incredibly brave, dangerously naive, or something stranger still? Later that cycle, Yarrick joined Captain Sarithra on the bridge, watching stars slide past the viewport. Captain, he began, I appreciate what you've done for us. I know this must be complicated. Sarithra turned toward him. Aren't you concerned? Terminus isn't exactly neutral. Some might see your species as a threat. Yarrick leaned against the railing. First contact was always going to be messy, but avoiding it wouldn't fix anything. If we want to be part of your world, we have to earn that place. And if certain factions decide you're too much of a risk, he shrugged. Then we face that when it comes. But I think deep down, most advanced beings want the same core things: peace, progress, and connection. I'm betting on that. Sarithra studied him for a long moment. You know, Yarrick, sometimes I wonder if humanity is what the rest of us used to be, before the comforts of safety softened us. Maybe, Yarrick said. Or maybe we're just what happens when nature refuses to give you a break. They stood in silence, the stars burning ahead, silent witnesses to an uncertain future neither side could yet predict. Security, Yarrick said, and the opportunity to build something better for those who come after us. Captain Sarithra studied him. This human, standing in her command center, spoke of possible galactic rejection with the calm of someone discussing weather. How are you so hopeful? She asked softly. Yarrick smiled. Because fear never fixed anything. Back home, we figured out something important. You can either dread the worst, or you can get ready for whatever's next. We choose readiness. As the Starwaver veered toward Terminus Central, Captain Cerethra found herself wondering if the universe was truly prepared for Earth's children, or if Earth's children truly grasped what lay beyond the stars. Terminus Central wasn't just large, it was vast. Stretching beyond the human eye's limit, the colossal station bristled with docking pylons and transport lanes. Vessels of every shape hovered, landed, departed. Energy arrays pulsed across its hull like veins. Yarrick Morrison stood at the viewport, staring in awe. That's not a station. That's a floating city. Avia Collins, manning the helm, gave a low whistle. That thing must house entire populations. Rail Winters flicked his scanner. Layered shielding, dense weapons arrays, patrols on every vector. They're not leaving anything to chance. Can you blame them? Yarrick murmured. To them, we're an anomaly, survivors from a death world that shouldn't produce starfarers. The approach procedure took 2 hours. Terminus authorities had quarantined an entire sector just to accommodate the vigilant dawn. As the trio readied themselves to disembark, massive crowds gathered behind translucent barriers. Alien faces pressed close, eyes wide with a mix of curiosity, fear, and suspicion. Captain Cerethra met them at the docking bay. "The council is assembled," she said, voice taut, "but there's been a complication." "What kind?" Yarrick asked. "One of the station's envoys sustained an injury while preparing the greeting hall," she explained. "His name is Torin. He belongs to the Crystari. The medical team's worried about contamination." They followed her through polished corridors, under watchful eyes and silent whispers. Dozens of different species turned to watch the humans pass. Some nodded, others recoiled. A few looked ready to bolt. In the infirmary, a tall crystalline figure lay on a support slab, luminous blue ichor seeping from a jagged crack in his arm. Medical personnel hovered, clearly uneasy. Dr. Vaelna stepped forward. Torin was configuring the human data array when he accidentally fractured his outer layer. The shard that cut him was carrying Earth-origin biological schematics. There's concern about exposure. The Crystari envoy looked up as they approached, his shimmering features shifting faintly. "I apologize," he said, voice ringing like chimes in wind. "I was eager to assist. I acted too quickly." Without missing a beat, Yarrick stepped closer. "No harm done. Accidents happen." The medics gave him a wide berth as he examined the break. "This resembles a surface laceration, like a glass cut," he said. "Something we stitch up back home." "You've treated similar trauma?" asked a wide-eyed nurse. "Too many times," Yarrick replied. "Broken edges, foreign material, pressure sealing. Same principles, different anatomy." Rail leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He once treated a person with a screwdriver in their thigh during a storm. Avia chuckled. "Don't ask how it got there." Dr. Vaelna blinked. "Why would?" "Never mind." Torin's body pulsed softly. "Thank you for not fearing me." Yarrick smiled. "We're all just trying to make sense of the unknown. We don't run from that." Captain Cerethra watched the exchange, unease twisting in her gut. Humanity, it seemed, wasn't merely unafraid of the galaxy. They were ready to heal it. "Injury?" asked a medical technician. "Not exactly this type," Yarrick replied. "But I've patched up more than a few gashes and fractures. The fundamentals probably match." Avia Langston waved her compact scanner across the room. "No trace of harmful cross-species contact," she confirmed. "That data slate just had anatomical basics, no active pathogens or biohazards." Rail Winters glanced at the anxious medical staff. "Where we're from," he said pointedly, "when somebody gets hurt, you help them. Worry about protocol later." Yarrick crouched beside Torin. "May I examine your limb?" he asked gently. "I want to see if I can brace the fracture." The Crystari diplomat gave a faint nod. Yarrick ran his fingers near the fault line, then looked around. "You have anything like a bonding polymer? A quick seal agent?" One of the medics hesitantly passed him a compact tool. "This one stabilizes lattice structures in crystalline beings." "Perfect," Yarrick murmured. He worked with calm precision, speaking gently as he applied the sealant. "So, you are preparing the chamber for our arrival?" "Yes," Torrin replied, voice strengthening with each second. "I have studied your civilization extensively since the alerts began. You are fascinating. Your species endured what should have been extinction." Yarok offered a small grin. "We didn't think about it like that. We just adapted." He pressed the final seal and stepped back. "That should hold until your team does a more thorough fix." Dr. Vaelna scanned the repair with wide eyes. "Stabilization is flawless," she whispered. "Structural integrity restored." Torrin gingerly flexed his arm. "No pain. It feels whole. Thank you." The med bay had grown crowded. Word had clearly spread. Human intervention had stabilized a Crystari using unfamiliar tech and instinct. "You just repaired him," another physician muttered. Yarok shrugged. "Just basic trauma care." Rail added, "On Earth, you learn to fix wounds early. Hurricanes don't give you time to call for backup." 1 hour later, Yarok stood in the center of the convergence chamber. Dozens of galactic dignitaries filled the rows, members of over 50 species. All eyes were fixed on the Terran trio. Avia and Rail stood beside him, silent but watchful. Captain Cerethra and her senior officers observed from the gallery, unreadable. A towering figure rose, skin like polished mercury, 7 reflective eyes. Vaction, Speaker of the Galactic Concord. Yarok Morrison of Solterra. Vaction began, voice resonating. "You are presented to this conclave as humanity's envoy. We convene to decide your kind's role in our shared order." "Thank you," Yarok said calmly. "It's an honor to be received. Some seated here fear you." Vaction continued. "Your cradle world defies classification, an ecosystem of predators, disasters, and extremes. Your people have physical strength beyond most warriors, weapons capable of planetary destruction, and minds sharpened by adversity. Should we not be cautious?" Yarok nodded. "You're not wrong. We come from hardship, but we're not here to dominate. We're here to connect, to offer what we've learned and gain what we lack." Another delegate rose, scaled and crimson-eyed. "And if we choose to reject you, then we'll accept that," Yarok replied evenly. "But I hope we won't be judged by our origins. We didn't choose our world. We chose to survive it. And now we choose to share what survival taught us." Gasps rippled through the hall. Some skeptical, some intrigued. Rail leaned toward Avia. "That last line was good." Avia whispered back, "I think he's scaring them and inspiring them at the same time." Captain Cerethra stared down at the humans standing before the galaxy's mightiest powers, and she wondered if they just handed a matchstick to a species made of wildfire. A delegate from the Valderan hegemony stood, her angular frame rigid with disdain. "How can we place faith in those bred by brutality? Your very survival reveals a species honed for destruction." Avia Langston answered calmly, "Our survival reveals endurance, not bloodlust. There's a difference." Rail Winters stepped forward. "If you want to judge us by what we can do, judge us also by what we choose not to." Council Speaker Vaction leaned forward, tone curious. "Explain." Yarok Morrison nodded. "We could have arrived as conquerors. With our resilience and tools, we probably could have taken what we wanted." He paused, voice steady. "But we came as seekers, eager for understanding, not conquest." "What is it you want then?" another envoy demanded. Yarok considered. "To belong. Earth taught us that survival doesn't come from domination, but from unity. We're hoping to be part of something far greater than ourselves." "And what does your kind offer in return?" the same delegate asked. Avia stepped into the light. "We go where others won't. We endure the unbearable. We adapt in chaos. That's not theory. It's life on our planet." "For instance," asked Vaction. Rail interjected. "We've heard whispers of the Rift Plague, corrupting fringe systems. Nobody ventures there because it's unstable and lethal." He smiled. "To us, that sounds like a Tuesday." The chamber buzzed, anxious whispers spreading like sparks. The Rift Plague had decimated whole colonies. The afflicted sectors were filled with warped gravity wells, radiation storms, and madness-inducing biofields. No species had dared attempt consistent intervention. Yara continued, "We're not claiming miracles, but we've tackled the impossible before. If anyone can navigate the abyss, it's us." Council Speaker Vaction tilted his head. "You would willingly venture into ruin for strangers?" Yarrick met his gaze. "If they're in need, yes. That's how we build peace. One storm at a time." 3 grueling hours passed. The chamber rang with arguments. Delegates contacted their governments, negotiated positions, pleaded, or resisted. At last, Vaction rose again. "By narrow vote," he announced, "the Galactic Concord welcomes humanity as a provisional member." The chamber stirred, some in applause, others in quiet dissent. "You will gain limited access to trade sectors, linguistic archives, and diplomatic transmission lanes," Vaction continued. Yarrick exhaled, tension draining into a quiet thrill. "However," Vaction added, "due to your species' unique tolerance for hostile environments, you are assigned a specialized designation." Avia arched an eyebrow. "What designation?" "First response hazard operatives," Vaction stated. "In times of galactic crisis, where conditions are lethal, chaotic, or unknown, your people will be called upon." Rail chuckled. "So emergency rescue specialists for cosmic hellscapes." "In basic terms, yes." Yarrick grinned. "Sounds like us." As they exited the amphitheater, Yarrick turned to Captain Cerethra. "So what now?" She walked beside him, arms folded, thoughtful. "Now you return to your world. Tell them what happened. Prepare them for what's next." "And what's next?" Rail asked. Yarrick answered, "We help whoever needs it, especially if it's dangerous." Cerethra stopped, watching him carefully. "You're aware this might mean sending your people into fires no one else will enter?" Jarrick's voice was quiet. "We've always lived with fire. We just never let it stop us." As the Ecliptica Dawn prepped for departure, it no longer drifted in solitude. 3 vessels from different civilizations docked nearby, volunteers. Crews trained in disaster response, medical relief, and data recovery. They had chosen to escort the humans home, eager to understand the species who turned survival into skill and made chaos their comfort zone. For the first time in galactic memory, a Tier 15 lethal origin world, Terra, would receive formal envoys. And, strangely, many looked forward to it. What if humanity's greatest strength was surviving the impossible? A species forged in storms, tempered by disaster, and now chosen to answer the galaxy's darkest calls for help. Would you trust humans with the fate of your world? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would Earth thrive as the galaxy's last line of defense or crumble under pressure? Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to follow the next chapter in this interstellar journey. Because the real adventure is only just beginning.